Hello again. So today I posted on Instagram and I opened up for a little bit of Q&A. I got a few really good questions, and instead of making one video for each one, I thought that I would just kind of throw them all in here and maybe just start a series where maybe once a week I kind of open it up for like just open Q&A, and based on whatever you guys see here, maybe you follow up with some questions in the comments section or message me directly on Instagram, and then I'll create videos to answer those questions. So the first question that I got was thoughts on the Leica system and if I shoot other cameras. So the Leica systems that they're referring to are the Leica Q2 point and shoot with the 28mm fixed lens, and the Leica SL2. So I am new to the Leica system. I've been shooting with the Leica Q2 for about a year now, and I just picked up the Leica SL2 last month. So I had originally paired up the Leica Q2 with my GFX 50S, and I loved that combination of having that focal length of 28mm, which I hadn't worked with previously. I used to shoot with a 45 and bounce back and forth with the 45 and a 65 Midicon on my GFX. So those were my two working focal lengths, and that's it. I do believe in having a small footprint. Again, you have to find what works for you. I'm a simple man. I don't like complicating my life. I take a lot of pride in being efficient and having a small footprint on a wedding day or photo shoot. So for me, I like minimal gear. I don't like having more than two cameras on me. If I could do everything with one camera, that would be a dream come true. And I was operating with one camera for a very long time with just the GFX and then swapping lenses. However, now that I've incorporated the Q2, again, I needed something with a standard focal length like a 50, so I picked up the SL2. And let me dive into why I did that. And why I walked away from the GFX medium format sensor system. So, as I've explained in another video, the GFX served as a means to create film-like images with a digital sensor. So I had shifted my business model away from shooting film, which was a great, ease. There was a lack of overhead with film costs and development. My workflow changed, no longer needed an assistant to load my film, or I didn't have to slow down and stop to do it myself. So the GFX took over. It immediately retired my Pentax 645, which I sold. And then so I moved on to adding the Q2 because I felt like I needed something to capture moments that were happening on the fly in front of me. I wanted to be able to just bring it up to my eye, not really think about it, just quickly compose my shot and go. Before the Q2, I had the 100V, and so that's the camera system that I was using in that way. But it didn't really pair up with my GFX as far as quality goes, and I know a lot of people love the 100V and they swear by it. It's their everyday camera. I'm not an everyday camera guy. I want the best tool for the job with the best possible image quality available, and for me, that was the Q2. And what that ended up doing, it was my gateway drug into the Leica family, I guess. And I immediately fell in love with that sensor. I loved what it was doing. I loved its color science, and that for me was game changing. That was the first time that I immediately loved what I saw out of my raw files, out of the colors. And so I said, you know what? I'm not shooting film anymore. Why am I using presets that are emulating film? And being somebody who's promoted finding your own voice for such a long time, like let's play a little bit here, and there's something here. So I one day decided to not apply any presets and just work off of the raw file and see what I could do there and bring it to a place where I love the image, where it spoke to me and it was an aesthetic that I could relate to and that looked familiar to me as well. So I did that with the GFX and the Q2, and I loved what I saw and I loved what I was doing. However, again, with the effort to create a simpler system, a better workflow, and more continuity, once I realized that the SL2 shares the same sensor as the Leica Q2, I thought that's it. That's it for me. That's what I want. I don't want two different cameras with different color sciences and different raw files. I'm all about making it simpler for myself and having a certain level of continuity that when you see my images, you can easily identify them as mine, which is something that I have taken pride in over the last few years. When people, I'd get comments like, oh, I'd scroll through my feed and I can immediately recognize that as one of your pictures. Like, great, love it, boom, let's ship it. So in comes the Leica SL2, and I knew that with this system, I would be able to incorporate the standard focal length of a 50, which is what the majority of my work had been shot on. With the GFX, the 65, I think it's like, I don't know, 45, 48 equivalent, something like that. I don't know the math. What I instantly realized was that, I recognized the files as being a Leica file, the color science, and I loved how it matched with the Q2 immediately. I will say that as I'm still working on weddings and photo shoots with the GFX file, it's still a gorgeous file to work with. It's beautiful. I love the way that the Midicon renders those images and has that 3D effect, that film-like quality. And as much as I can appreciate that file and that look, I recognize and I understand that that's just an aesthetic that I no longer resonate with. It's, again, I'm not trying to shoot like film. I'm not trying to match my images to make it look like Portra 400 or whatever. So making that decision of taking my photography in another direction, right? More editorial, something that would appease more to, the bride who flips through Vogue or goes on the Vogue website, Bazaar, who watches fashion documentaries, who just loves fashion. I felt like the Leica system and its sensor catered more to that aesthetic than what I was previously shooting with. So I have a handful of shoots with both the Leica SL2 paired with the Leica Q2. And so far I am beyond happy. I love the editing workflow. I love bringing in these files and just understanding. It just makes my life easier. It makes me happier. And of course, if I'm happier, I'm gonna come out to these shoots more excited, be able to tap into my creative flow in a much better way, and that's going to produce better images for my clients. So that, now the follow-up question with that, I hope that answers, more or less that question. So the follow-up is, if I shoot other cameras, yes and no. So I don't plan on incorporating any other cameras into my kit. Maybe down the line pick up an SL2S for just because it has a better low light capability. So it might be a system that I might pull out at the end of the night and put my SL2 away. I'm not sure if it's worth it. I don't know if I need to invest that amount of money into a second SL2 system, or if that low light sensor is really worth it. Yeah, again, I don't know if I need it. I might get it. I might have to rent it or borrow it from someone. Any other cameras that I shoot are gonna be, again, I shot with a Canon EOS 3 this weekend, 35mm film camera, and I handed over a Canon FTB film camera to my assistant for him to shoot, and that was basically what came out before the Canon AE. A little bigger, looks almost identical, just its bigger older brother. Will I be keeping those? I have no idea. I think maybe there's still room for the EOS 3 in my kit. I paired it with a 50. It's very easy to shoot, autofocus. It's that and the Q2 are my autofocus cameras. Obviously the SL2 is autofocus, but I don't intend on shooting with any autofocus lenses or the native lenses for the SL2. They're just huge, massive, and bulky, and I was able to shoot with my assistant's 50mm Summicron 2.0, and I loved it. I loved its size, its It's compact. I loved focusing on it. I loved what I was seeing in the EVF. There's no vignetting compared to the current 50 that's on my SL2, which is a TT Artisan 50 millimeter f.95. We can make a video for that another time. So with going back to the SL2, what I intend on doing in the future is picking up probably the same lens, the 50 millimeter Summicron, or a 50 millimeter Summilux 1.4. I feel like that would be my dream lens to have on there, and that would really kind of just round out my kit. So if I shoot with other cameras, yeah, again, yes and no. I might be incorporating a Contax T3 into the workflow, a little point and shoot. You know, I'll pick up disposable cameras here and there, but I don't want to complicate my kit. I don't want to add more to it. I don't want to be hauling all of this gear, and I'm not a gearhead anyways. I'm not that techie. I just want the best tool for the job that's going to help me get it done, and I don't like for gear to get in my way. So there's that. Next one is processing Leica images. And then I'm gonna combine two questions from two different people. So somebody wrote processing Leica images, and then they wanted me to elaborate on color grading, composition, and confidence. So I'll interpret that last one how I see fit. So processing Leica images, again, here's my workflow. With the raw files, they get pretty damn close to where I need them to. I think that sometimes the auto white balance on the Leicas are kind of iffy, especially looking through the EVF. I can see like a lot of grays, sometimes blues. I'm like, that's gonna be a little weird. So that it may not be that accurate. So there might be some color shifts here and there, which again, isn't that big of a deal for me to just kind of slide that white balance temperature bar over to the left or right way where I see fit. But for me, really, it's about white balance, contrast, and tones in the tone curve bar, and that's kind of all I'm messing with. So first is my white balance, although usually I will slide over the contrast slider to the left because I want a flatter image. I'm after something more cinematic. I used to be a lot more punchier with high contrast, kind of like what you're seeing here, but I think I'm kind of getting a little bit away from that, and I'm right now currently trying to figure out a balance of what I'm drawn to the most. So I will slide my contrast slider to the left in Lightroom if you're familiar with this editing system. And then I'll go from there. I'll adjust my tones accordingly. So, you know, I'll increase my mids, and then I'll crunch the blacks a little bit there instead of doing it up on the contrast. So just to have a little bit more control. And then I'll adjust my white balance accordingly, and it's just a feel thing. It's what I like, you know, whether I want it cooler, more natural, more truer to what I was seeing that day with my own eyes, not through the EVF, or whether I just want a warmer tone. I tend to go a little bit warmer, but I've also been playing with something a lot more neutral and more true to life. I don't like I don't want you to think or feel like there's a preset over it that's just gonna completely change the image, change the colors of your suit or your dress or your flowers or the landscape. I want it to be as true to life as possible. Composition, I definitely use rule of thirds. That's something that kind of grounds me. Even right now as I'm looking at my iPhone screen, I have the grid for the rule of thirds, and I'm like, right now I'm in that intersecting point for the upper right third segment or whatever. And I kind of do the same thing with my Q2. I'll put my my focus point right here. So this would be that intersecting point. So if I want to just bring up my camera and I focus on something, I know that my subject is going to lie here or here. But I try to avoid the center, right? So I just kind of want to make sure that depending on what I'm trying to say, whether if they're walking, I'm making sure there's no negative space behind them and making sure that the negative space is ahead of them. I want it to make sense. You know, just kind of understanding those rules, those very simple basics, getting back to the fundamentals of photography. Once you get that down, you kind of have something to work off of, and then you decide if you want to break those rules or if you want to abide by them to tell your story. It's however you want to present your story. So that's the thing about photography, is that it's entirely subjective, and there's really it's your own personal truth, you know, the personal truth of the photographer and their perspective of the day or whatever's happening in front of them. And just capturing the day as it unfolds from your perspective. So there's no absolute truth. I will always contradict photographers who talk about truth in photography, and it's like capturing the real stuff and what is real. It's just your perception, your perspective, and what you have to say about whatever's happening in front of you, right? So somebody's going to capture the same scene in an entirely different way from me, and that doesn't mean that it's any less real or not. Again, there is no absolute truth in photography. It's only personal truth, and your personal truth cannot be a universal one. So just take that however you want to take that. Confidence. Not entirely sure what you mean by that, or what, if you're asking me about confidence, or what's, all kind of just interpreted in my own way and what confidence means to me. I do like to operate with a quiet confidence on a photo shoot. I gather all of my years of experience behind the camera and away from the camera, right? Life experiences absolutely play a part in how I view the world, and how I interact with others and how I interact with my subjects. So walking into a space with the confidence of being able to provide my subjects with the safety that they need to feel like themselves and to feel comfortable enough to allow me into their space, into their lives, into their world. And it's not just my subjects or my clients, but it's the people around them, especially on a wedding day. It's their parents, it's the best man, maid of honor, bridesmaids, groomsmen, guests, and just making sure that everyone feels safe and that they are free to be themselves around me. And so moving through that level of confidence definitely requires experience. There's no second guessing on the day. You'll never see me pausing and wondering what to do next. So just constantly pushing to find a moment or help create a moment even. I don't believe in 100% photojournalism on a wedding day. I understand there's a space for that, there's a market for that, but that's just not who I am. What I want to bring to my clients is the ability for them to be themselves. However, I want to introduce an elevated level of grandeur to their images, right? So that's having a hand in putting them in the absolute best light possible, making sure that the clothes falls on them the right way, that the bride has a beautiful silhouette and shape that's flattering. I'm looking out for things like earrings and hair and flyaways and hair ties in the beginning of the day, and making sure that everything looks great so that you can then have, as a subject client, have the confidence to be yourself and feel like you're absolutely being taken care of. So I hope that I interpreted that, the confidence statement or question in the way that you wanted to hear. I'm not sure, but if not, and you want me to clear that up some more, please reach out and I can do that for you. What do you see trending for style in the wedding industry? Let me take a sip of water really quick. So, trends. I don't care for them at all. I don't look at what's trending. I mean, I understand, and obviously I have eyes, so I know what's trending. I don't care for them. I don't necessarily mean to jump on board the train, the cool train, or whatever's trending. Well, what's happening right now just happens to resonate deeply with who I am as a person and as an artist, as someone who has been fighting and struggling with and rebelling against the wedding industry in terms of, light and airy and fine art and words like ethereal and all of this stuff, where I had given into that. So that's like the major trend that was going on for so long, and it's still around. And what happened was I lost myself in that. I lost my sense of identity, and which is why I promote finding yourself and finding your voice. So as far as what's trending, I happen to have attended the Engage Summit in Ireland a little over a week ago. If you're not familiar with it, it's a wedding industry summit for the luxe side of our world, right? And I had very many wonderful conversations with super incredibly amazing and talented people, and they recognize where the industry is going. And I think all of this happened post-COVID. I think that people's priorities shifted during the pandemic, and people wanted to see more candid moments. They weren't taking life for granted anymore, so they wanted to see these organic moments filled with life. They wanted to see more pictures of their guests and family members and grandmas and grandpas that might not be with them anymore. And so there's a different sense of appreciation for life, and how that translates into photography, into our industry, is a more photojournalistic approach. So people, maybe some have struggled with that, where everything needs to be picture perfect. And again, there's this fine art realm where it's kind of like marrying still life and fine art and wedding documentation all into one. So there is a resurgence with photojournalism in photography. A lot more black and whites, a lot more organic, candid moments. And I think that's just a shift of society and us as a people and as a culture. And we're not seeing it just here in America, but around the world as well. A lot of European photographers, a lot of Russian photographers, some Australian photographers, I would say, are at the forefront of this movement with their aesthetic and their approach to capturing a wedding day. If you look at publications like The Lane, Wed, Anti-Bride, The Bridal Journey, who all promote and push this aesthetic, which is kind of like anti-light and airy and fine art. I'm starting to see, photographers on there who are on those lists who I was surprised to see on there, who might not have been on there 3 years ago. But again, you have to have foresight, you have to adapt. If you're going to approach your work from the business owner mindset, if you're approaching your work as an artist, then again, stay true to yourself, figure out your lane, and your people will come, because there is a market for everything, for all of that, for fine art, for dark and moody, which I don't like dark and moody. I call that dramatic lighting or proper exposure. There's room for everyone to eat, right? So you just have to find out what works for you. But there is a gradual transition, and it's going to take a while for the major blogs to kind of catch up. But I predict that we will see that shift in, by the next wedding season. You're going to see more of your favorite wedding photographers kind of going in that direction. So there's that. And then the last question is, do you teach photography or offer any courses? Teaching is something that I've felt very passionate about for a very long time. I don't know that I have the mental space for it, or that I'm ready for that. I feel that what I had told myself is I wanted to be in the industry for 10 years, take a look back at my work, and then assess whether I was ready to share what I had learned and what I have accomplished and share that with others. I don't know that I'm quite there yet. I feel like I'm still growing as a person, as an artist, as a business owner, and I don't want to feel like a fraud. So if I'm going to accept your money, if I'm going to accept your investments into what I have to offer, I want to feel like I have done my part in contributing into this industry and my work, the wedding industry, in a way where I can look you in the eyes with great confidence and be like, here, let me impart my wisdom on you. And I think that's probably what this YouTube stuff is. I think that I do have a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions, and a lot to share. And maybe this might be me just kind of testing those waters. So with that said, I don't offer any courses. I haven't worked on developing any courses. I have spoken to several people about one-on-one mentorships over the years. My whole thing about that is being selective about who I would work with. I feel like I would want to vet you as much as you're gonna vet me as an instructor or as a mentor. I think that there is such a thing as the right student, you're removing ego, because I'm gonna I would strip you bare. It depends on where you are, whether you're a beginner or you're in photography years in, and maybe you just want to take your business to the next level. I think that my process would have a very humbling experience of stripping you bare and getting to just diving deep, removing ego. And from what I understand about education is, if you were to have a room of 100 people, I think the statistics is something like 2% of those people actually sit there and listen and apply those teachings and go on to be successful, which makes a lot of sense when you consider that the wealth of our world exists only in the top 1 and 2% of our population. So there's that. And I want to make sure that whoever I work with, I'm guiding them and helping them in such a way where they actually see results, and hopefully not just in their business but in their personal life as well. Because for me, it has been a personal journey of self-discovery that has allowed me to take my craft, my art, and subsequently my business to another level, and I'm still growing and I'm still learning, and I love every moment of it. So if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out. As long as I'm free and I have the mental space for it, I'll be here to help you however I can, to answer whatever questions you may have. And if you wanted to do, if you really wanted to kind of examine a one-on-one mentorship and what that would look like, of course, you can email me too. And I'm very transparent. I'll give you a no BS assessment of where you are and what I can offer you, and then you can make the decision yourself if you wanted to move forward with something like that. So yeah, that was great. That's exciting. Obviously, I hope that you're seeing that I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions on a lot of different things. So you are more than welcome to reach out with any questions or comments you may have, whether in the comments on Instagram or even email, and I'll be here to answer them all whenever I can. So I'm trying to be better about this. I realized that in my last video, I said it had been a few months since my last video, but I saw the date and it was 9 months. So I'm hoping that I can, kind of create a couple of these a week, and then maybe get a little bit more consistent with them. But thanks again for your questions. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you all, and I hope to continue seeing you all soon. All right, take care.